Rufus Buck, Mary Fields, Trudy Smith, Nat Love, Cherokee Bill, Jim Beckworth, Bass Reeves, Bill Pickett. These are some of the unsung heroes and heroines of the Western era, featured in the recent release, Netflix's recent release of the film, The Harder They Fall. This is an incredible movie that we will now be reviewing on Griot's Corner. Peace and blessings. This is Brother Hethel, and we will look at this film, The Harder They Fall. Have to mention, in reflecting on this film, it took me back to my childhood, remembering the Westerns that I used to watch: Bonanza, Big Valley, Rawhide. These were some of the Westerns that were featured in the time before internet, before cable. We would watch these Westerns weekly, sometimes on Saturday afternoons, if you will, when they would be featured. My father was a big time Westerns fan as well. In fact, he loved Westerns so much that he named me and my brother two characters in the televised Western Big Valley, naming me Heath and him Jared. And so this has been a part of my growing up, my formative years, and being exposed to this era that is now being retold, and being retold in light of the fact that the names that I just mentioned were Black men and women who lived during this era, whose stories not only have not been told honestly and truthfully. In one particular character or personality in this movie, portrayed masterfully by Delroy Lindo, who we will talk about in a few minutes, but I just have to mention Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves is so vital is because the whole story and the televised series that came out years ago, and movie that came out a few years ago entitled The Lone Ranger, was based on Bass Reeves. Now, never would have had any issues with the Lone Ranger being white if Bass Reeves was a white man, but he was a Black man. And so for him to be, for his name and his contribution to be minimalized, to not showcase that he is from a community that really, he was a ranger. The real Bass Reeves was a ranger. And what he did was phenomenal. For him to even have that kind of position and job during that time, because slavery was still very much alive and well. Racism was still rampant throughout these communities. And this is what we see reflected, portrayed beautifully here in this movie, The Harder They Fall. But before we mention the characters, we have to mention the scope of this story. Because again, the movie opens up with saying that the characters are real, but the storyline is fictionalized. But honestly, the story was written beautifully, and it deals with a vast array of subjects, not giving any spoiler alerts, but it deals with spousal and child abuse. It deals with child neglect. It deals with revenge. It deals with lawlessness, and it deals with romantic love. And it's also touches on Black entrepreneurship during this era, with characters who own their own businesses and were thriving. They were thriving businesses during that time. And of course, you know, when the infiltration of persons outside of these communities coming in and taking these lands and putting up or arranging bogus deals with them to take possession of these lands, that did definitely happen as well. But it definitely shows that the story deals with these components. And the reason why it's important to lift that up is because for many years, Hollywood industries, movie industries in Hollywood, if you will, and other industries that make movies, these elements were not always portrayed with a Black cast characters. At best, Black people were characterized. We were portrayed as a caricature, if you will, but never dealing with these elements of definitely romantic love was scarce at one time, but also looking at Black entrepreneurship, what we own and what Black people own and possess as a community, that was not lifted up and it was not addressed as well. But this movie covers that, and it covers that in a masterful way. And I really believe the storyline and what it deals with, the touching ending that comes, is going to really blow your mind. But we got to talk about these portrayals that were outstandingly remarkable. First, want to lift up Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is an incredible actor. He portrays Nat Love. His performance was masterful. Idris Elba, who portrays Rufus Buck. Again, can't get enough of brother Idris Elba, what he did with that character and what he did in being one of the characters who was portrayed in this story was profound and beautiful. Much shout out to Zazie Beetz, who portrays Mary Fields. She was remarkable in her performance as Mary Fields. And Regina King, gotta pause on Sister Regina King, because she portrays Trudy Smith beautifully and masterfully. These characters were profoundly uplifted in this movie. Lakeith Stanfield, who portrays Cherokee Bill, was remarkable. R.J. Clyer, who portrays Jim Beckworth, was profound. Dion Cole, the comedian, portraying Wally Esco, was incredible. Bill Pickett, portrayed by Eddie Gathegi. I don't want to mispronounce his name. His portrayal was incredible. But Delroy Lindo, and his portrayal as Bass Reeves, capturing this personality in such a beautiful, masterful way. The way he characterized Bass Reeves, who was a man of integrity, and it's reflected in this film, the integral way in which he is engaged in this story was remarkable. And an up-and-coming actress by the name of Danielle Deadwyler, who portrays the role of Cuffy. These performances were stellar, beyond reproach. You can tell that just on a level of their preparation for these roles, that they did their work, that they definitely spent time with one another. They spent time with these characters. You can tell that they did research of that period, of that culture, of that time, and it was reflected beautifully. So shout out to the writers, directors, the producers involved in this movie. Again, it's incredible. I would suggest that you sit down with your children and watch this film, and then pull up the images of these personalities and begin to share with the children who they were. And if they ask the question, well, why don't we hear about them in our history class? Deal honestly with them. We are still dealing with, lack of integrity in many communities outside of the Black community that do not want to reflect us honestly and truthfully historically, and the achievements and accomplishments that we have made that need to be uplifted. I will say this, I did mention earlier that if it was a Black Western, really, it's a Western featuring a Black cast, because this story and these personalities are a part of American history. This is not just about Black history. This is American history, because each of these personalities contributed to the very culture, fabric, and fiber of what America and who America is. And so it is profound in that light. And so I know that you will enjoy this film. Please go watch it on Netflix, The Harder They Fall. It was released on yesterday. I guarantee You're going to enjoy it. And so we will continue to be reviewing films of this kind. This is Brother Heath L. from the Griot's Corner, and we will see you very soon. And peace and blessings.